So while The Living Daylights proved to be okay with most people, I know that some people thought that Timothy Dalton wasn't a great Bond. I know that some people were pretty welcoming for a bit of a change. I do think that most people will agree that Dalton's next Bond film, which was License to Kill, was better. It was Dalton's last time playing Bond, even though when he did Looney Tunes Back in Action in the early 2000s, like there's some tongue-in-cheek stuff with him playing Bond, but yeah, a lot of people do seem to forget that Timothy Dalton really only played Bond twice. He just did The Living Daylights in 1987, License to Kill in 1989, and then 6 years later, in 1995, Pierce Brosnan plays James Bond for 7 years. So, yeah, just goes to show that even though Timothy Dalton wasn't Bond as often as Sean Connery or Roger Moore, so what? Quality over quantity. Yeah, I personally am one of those that did think that Dalton was a good Bond because, as I said in the Living Daylights review, a change was needed. And Timothy Dalton's face, it just looks more mean and more rugged, more manly than Roger Moore, who looked more welcoming and more of like a romantic sort. Timothy Dalton had more of that action sort of look that that Connery possessed. And as I said in the Living Daylights, they really did try to kind of push the envelope, because with during the Sean Connery days, things were kind of getting a little bit repetitive due to how many other espionage things that there were in terms of like TV and film. And with Roger Moore, same thing. But with the Roger Moore, to me, my own opinion, it was a little bit more apparent that things were getting a little bit repetitive. So with Timothy Dalton, they go a little bit more extreme with The Living Daylights, and License to Kill. Out comes probably the most brutal James Bond film. So usually with these James Bond espionage flicks, yes, they are very, very violent. There is a crazy villain who wants to take over the world, but in License to Kill, it's almost like a depressed James Bond takes on Scarface. Yeah, it deals with James Bond who goes on a personal vendetta against this drug cartel named Sanchez, who's played by Robert Davi from the Goonies fame. And yeah, he tries to enact revenge because the Sanchez character murdered his good friend's newlywed wife, nearly kills his friend himself, and MI6 doesn't think that they don't want to get too involved because, you know, they mostly deal with like government-related things, all that kind of stuff, and Sanchez is a cartel, leave it to the DEA. So Bond doesn't want that. He goes rogue and tries to infiltrate Sanchez. And yeah, because the movie came out in 1989, that was again, I said in Living Daylights, the 80s was a good time to push the envelopes even farther. I know that in the 60s and in the 70s, new wave of American cinema, they were starting to push the envelope too. Well, after a while, people getting used to what they could see and what they couldn't, push it even further. And when was the last time that James Bond dealt with anybody of this caliber of nastiness and sheer brutality? It's because usually when you think of James Bond villain, you think of just some crazy guy who wants to take over the world, like what they made fun of in the Austin Powers films, the Dr. Evil trope. Well, as I said earlier in this video, Robert Davi as Sanchez, he's pretty much a Scarface. But, Scarface, 1983, this one, 1989. I do think that even if you don't agree with me that the Sanchez character is like Al Pacino's Tony Montana, at least see where I'm coming from. But it's in terms of like how much of a drug dealer he is and all the extreme viciousness of what's going on. You gotta see where I'm coming from, right? Yeah, there are some flaws here and there with like some of the actors and actresses. And like almost every Bond film that's ever been made, it does run out of steam. But still, I do think that License to Kill, despite being noticeably different than a lot of Bond films, it's good that it's different. It's good that they try to do something and to really go that extra mile. Is this as good as some of Pierce Brosnan films made in the 90s? Maybe not. Is this as good as some Connery or Roger Moore films? Maybe not. Is it better than some of Brosnan and Connery and Moore and Daniel Craig films? Is a License to Kill better than some of those? Definitely. So I feel like giving the License to Kill from 1989 3 stars out of 4.